welcome to a discussion with. Today I sit down with a personal guest of mine. It's Franklin High School's wrestling coach, Carmine Colace. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
It's awesome. I had this idea. I knew we had talked about this a little bit before. Is wrestling coach is a little different animal. We're a little different group of people. So I wanted to sit down with all the wrestling coaches that I knew and kind of showcase who we are. I think it's a good show idea.
Oh, it's a great idea. Hey, do I get to keep the mug?
You can keep a mug.
All right.
You can keep the mug for sure.
I need some shades for these lights.
Yeah, under the spotlights, we're not used to it, right?
No, we definitely are a different breed of people. I've always said, like any other sport, wrestling people are good people. There's so many good people in wrestling. When I say that to people that aren't associated with wrestling, I don't think they know what I actually mean. But I started wrestling to stay in shape for football, and my favorite sport was baseball. So I was a three-sport athlete in high school, and you see different sides from perspective-wise from these other sports, and then you just fall in love with wrestling because of what wrestling is and what it's all about. And I've always said I've met nothing but good people in wrestling. You have a few sour grapes here and there, but not really. You never see a sport where, for instance, when you came on that trip to Delaware with us,
Yep.
right? I got to meet you, got to know you a little bit better and stuff. And even though you weren't wrestling for Franklin High, but it was a group trip, and it was just, you don't get that in other sports. Like, I'm helping you or you're helping me. We're working together, but we're both competing against each other at the same time. So they don't get that.
Yeah, I think one of the things just this interview alone, Franklin High School is the direct rival of North Attleboro. For wrestling sense, it's the team that we constantly circle on our schedule and want to wrestle. We can't wait for it. It's the team that we compete with all the time. So to be sitting down, you're my first interview that I'm doing with this. I think that speaks enough for itself. But yeah, that trip to Delaware was amazing. People don't understand, like, when we wrestle competitively on a national level, it means a lot. And that was the first time I had been taken to something like that. So that meant a lot. That was a huge day for me. But you started wrestling or coaching pretty quick. You were 19 years old when you got hired as the Franklin High coach.
Yeah, they were gonna drop the program, and Mr. Jerry Leone, famous football coach and athletic director out of Franklin, gave me a chance. They were going to drop the program. I was at Bridgewater State at the time, and thinking about dropping out of school, following up into our family business. We've been in business for a long time, the Rome Restaurant in Franklin, and I said, I'll give it a go. And I was 19 years old. My first varsity match, we wrestled Assabet Valley. I don't think they have a team anymore. And I remember that day thinking we're going to go in there and win, and we got our butts whooped, and it was kind of depressing, but I did get started at an early age.
But so you're the head varsity coach at 19 years old. How difficult was that to kind of connect or to lead a group of people who were essentially the same age as you, right? They're only 18.
It was pretty difficult because I was coaching kids that I had wrestled. I was a senior and they were freshmen and sophomores. We didn't have a lot of kids in the team. I had a brother of mine, Richie, was on the team, so it was fun to have a sibling on the team, and it was tough because I didn't know what I was doing, But I would go and I had a mentor, Nick Zakili from Medfield. They had an unbelievable program back then, winning state championships year after year. I'd go and hide up in the bleachers, and nobody knew me back then, and watch what they were doing during their matches, and just loved their style of wrestling and competing, and kind of try to mimic our style after theirs. So it took a little while. We just didn't have the horses, and a little bit at a time, we kept getting better and better.
What was that you looked at that you started emulating other technique and other teams and stuff, but what was the big step for you because obviously your team has come a long way from that first year. So what was the big thing that you started to change?
I remember wrestling Holliston, and we were a very, very average or below average team. And this is my fourth year into the program. And they were below average too, like us. And we only had like 3 wins in the year. I think we were like 3-11 at that point in time. It was towards the end of the season. And the coach over there, Dave Hill, super nice guy, did a great job with the program over there. Came up with the Holliston Franklin Cup, right? So 2 programs in the area that have nothing else to fight for or wrestle for. You know, we have that meet at the end of the year, and the winner gets to keep the cup. So we actually won the match, which was kind of, you get the cup and never gave it back. And at the end of the meet, he says, "Oh, this is fantastic. This is great. We're never going to be really very competitive or any good, but this is something for the team, for our programs to shoot for." And I started thinking, "Why are you never going to be any good?" I just didn't believe in that, you know.
Right.
And I always had a philosophy, even back in high school, that if you're going to do something, do it right. If you're going to clean toilets, be the world champion toilet cleaner. I still talk to the kids about that. Take pride in whatever you're doing. And then it kind of hit me between the eyes. I go, I don't want to be like this. You know, I want to be a little more. I want to be more competitive. I want to be able to compete. I just want to be able to compete. And that turned a tide too. And that same year, we wrestled in the Division I South sectionals that year in Bridgewater, at Bridgewater Raynham. And it was like 18, 19 teams in the section, and it was so depressing. I didn't have anybody qualify for the second day. Can you imagine not having anybody qualify for the second day of a sectional tournament? We finished in last. We scored 13 points. I still remember. We almost scored 13 points, right? So sometimes, I've been on both ends of the spectrum, you know, so I feel bad for sometimes we have to wrestle a team and it's just like, all right, it's going to be a no-win situation for them, and it kind of back off a little bit. I've been on both sides of the spectrum where we're just getting clobbered. And that year there in particular, with the Holliston Cup and then finishing last in the section, I just sat up in the bleachers the second day of the tournament. Nobody knew who I was. I went to the seed meeting. They thought I was one of the wrestlers. You know, I'm just sitting there. Nobody would listen to me. So, and I'm up at the top of the bleachers watching the tournament go on, having nobody in there the second day. So that was tough. And you know what? There wasn't much around back then as far as there is now in the off season. So we're just trying to be creative. All right, let's start lifting some weights. We started lifting weights. I tried to get a 1 night a week club started at Franklin, and I think we ended up chartering it with USA Wrestling. And I had everybody back the following year. I had the whole team back. I didn't have any seniors that year. So we went from last in the sectionals. I think we went 18-2 the following year and took 4th in the section.
That's a huge improvement. Massachusetts Wrestling is not going to ask me this question, but people at Medfield might say, "Hey, why did you interview Carmine Colace?" So I want to read a couple of your accolades, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You had, as a coach, your dual meet record is 491. This is as of the. This is old information, so
right.
your record's improved since here. But this was 491 and 143. I'm assuming you're over 500 at this point, correct?
Actually, over 600 now.
You're over 600 now. So this is the.
That was 5 years ago.
This is 5 years ago. So this is the national. You're in the National Hall of Fame for wrestling and the Massachusetts chapter. So that was translated to a 77% win percentage. So in New England, we're pretty familiar with a world famous coach is Bill Belichick. I don't know if you've ever compared your win percentage to Bill Belichick. Have you done that?
No.
So
I didn't even know how many wins we had.
Yeah,
I had to do all kinds of research to find that out.
So this was, the information here is 24 years ago, 24 years of coaching. That was Cleveland and New England. He had a 68% win percentage. And then if you just count his New England Patriots career, he's a 74% win percentage. So you're a better coach than Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Just so
I'll
if
let
you
him
needed
know
to
that.
know. Yeah, you should let him know that next time you see him. But you've had 9 state championships. You've finished second 5 times. You've 9 team championships, and are second all-time in Massachusetts history behind George Bossy. As of this, you had over 100 sectional champions, 36 state champions, 8 New England champions, 21 All-Americans, and 3 national champions that you've coached. That's individually. That's incredible. Those are incredible. So what can you say about your individual guys? You have 8 New England champions, 21 All-Americans, and 3 national champions. I mean, you must remember them, right? You remember each individual?
Oh, yeah, of course I do.
Right? What's that like, being able to take someone to that level, to take them to, the national championship level? What's that like?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work and a lot of dedication. Kids got to want it. You know, I've always told the kids, I go, challenge me. You guys will not outwork me. And the kids take that challenge on. I go, I dare you to outwork me, and you will have success. You know, a lot of the All-Americans, like Danny Tejada. I don't know if you remember Danny Tejada.
I did. I wrestled him his freshman year.
Oh, that's right. That was his first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He messaged me afterwards, and he was like, "I want to wrestle you again." I was like, "You'd win. Like you'd win. Like it's not a question."
He was. What a great story he was. And that's right. He did wrestle you. We at the time we practiced separately in the room because we had a small room. And to go back in the old days, like I was telling you, we only had 23, 24 kids on the team. After we won our third straight state championship, I'm like, I go, hey, how come nobody's coming out for the team? I thought we'd have 50, 60 kids. And I go, Coach, they're all scared to come out.
Jeez.
We had some crazy kids in the team. We had the toughest kids in the school. And so it's like, well, give me some kids. You know? But anyways, well, Danny, so we had a lot more kids on the team during that time period. And he was in my JV room. I didn't even know him. He never wrestled youth, right? And so towards the end of the year, that was a special class. What a bunch of athletes we had in that class. Kids that never wrestled. 3 ended up winning states by the time they were seniors. You know, that doesn't happen that often. And so we brought him up to practice with the varsity. We had the state duels at the time. And we go to North Attleboro. We got the right call. You guys had beaten us during the year in a duel, and it was the state semifinals, and you wrestled Matty Backlaus a couple of times. So you know what? I'm going to take the definite win. We're going to bump up. And I told Tejada he's wrestling. And you had won states, I think, that year. Did you? Or took second?
No, I took third that year.
Third?
Yeah.
So I told Danny.
Because I lost to Matt in the semis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I told Danny, I go, you're wrestling tonight. He goes, you're wrestling Poria. He took third in the state. And he goes, I didn't bring my stuff.
Oh, my God.
He didn't even bring his stuff. I go, well, and he was the first match to go on, if you remember, right? And we got the coin flip. So you had to go on the mat first because we were going to chase the other kid.
I was so mad you did that. I was so mad.
I had to.
No, we knew that, you know, Burgess looked at me and was like, I knew he was going to do this. I knew he was going to do this. But yeah. And I couldn't pin him. I remember that.
I was always really good at strategy with that in that sense. And I go, so if I go, borrow some stuff, you're wrestling. He goes out there, right? And I go, just don't get pinned. I go, save the points, don't get pinned.
He did.
All of a sudden, he's chasing you all over the place. I go, stop.
Yeah.
And he ended up, you ended up beating, I think it was, I remember the score, 7-2. And it saved us a 3 points, 3 bonus points.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning the match, came down to the last weight class, but I think we ended up winning the match by 2. And that put us into the finals.
Absolutely.
You know, but that was his first match wrestling. And that year there, he actually went down to Delaware that year. He might have gone with you when you went. You might have gone the year before.
Yeah.
And he goes, Coach, can I go to Delaware with you guys to wrestle in the underclassmen nationals? I go, Danny, everybody down here is like a state finalist and stuff. This is your first year wrestling. He goes, oh, okay, I'll go. I go, all right, you're gonna have to find your own exhibition matches. We get down there, and he's chasing everybody to wrestle, right? So he kept wrestling until he won a match, right? He ended up, the matches started getting closer gap-wise. Right? He ends up winning his last match.
Wow.
So he was 1-13. He wrestled 14 matches in like a day and a half, right?
That's a lot of wrestling.
And in the next year, he kept wrestling all summer long. He ended up starting for us the next year. So he went from a JV wrestler to winning the sectionals, third in the state. In his junior year and senior year, he was a 2-time New England champ.
Yeah.
But he told me, and I didn't know he did this with 4 or 5 other teammates, is they made a pact with each other to wrestle 100 matches in the off season. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I go, you guys did that? He goes, yeah. And I go, what's the highest you guys get up to? They said 88. So, wow. And that whole crew developed into a really nice nucleus of kids where they won states 2 years in a row, 1 year in Division I, 1 year, and the other year in Division II. And so that's what it takes. People don't understand success. Any formula for success is hard work. and dedication. Otherwise, forget about it.
Yeah,
You know?
and you mentioned the state championships. You were Division II state champions, and then they moved you up to Division I, and then you win Division I state championships. Was that almost like vindicating for you? Was that something that
Well, it's like
D1
in Division II, because we were in Division II for a long time. Division I guys kind of look down. It's Division II. I had a friend of mine, Father John McLaughlin, used to coach at Woburn, and he called us the third world. I go, hey, listen. When you were at Lowell coaching at Woburn, and in 1989, you were at the same place we won that tournament by 50 points. Where'd you guys place?
Yeah.
And it was satisfying, and I thought it was a great accomplishment. I think we're the only male sports team in MIAA history to win back-to-back state titles in 2 different divisions.
Right. Yeah.
So that was quite an accomplishment for us. Really proud of that.
How do you recruit a kid? What do you look for in them when you go up and talk to them? I'm assuming at some point you must talk to a kid to recruit them. What do you look for in them?
Oh, I'm an awful recruiter.
Yeah?
I am. I just feel like, I should be coming out for the team just because of the success of the program. I'll make you a better athlete. I do talk to kids, but it's like I kind of want them to come out. I feel like I shouldn't be begging kids to come out.
Yeah.
They should be wanting to come out for the program. Nowadays, there's a lot of specialization, and I realize that, and wrestling too. But I would never talk a kid to going out for another sport. Like if I have a wrestler and he wants to play football, go play football.
Yeah.
I go, budget your time, put some time in for wrestling. Okay, it's going to make you a better athlete anyways.
Yep.
And I would never talk a kid out of going out for a particular sport, but it's happened to me a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the world's greatest recruiter, but if I can talk a kid to coming out, and I guarantee they'll have fun, they'll become a better athlete. What I look for in a kid, doesn't matter what their athletic ability is, you look for desire. That's what I'm looking for. The will to succeed is really important.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Now, is there the bodies in wrestling, right, is 106 to 285. And I always say anybody can wrestle. And it's literally anybody as in like any person, but also any body as in like whatever your body type is, you could be a wrestler. So what do you do when you look at your room? Do you coach to the individual, or do you coach as like, this is how our team wrestles and you're going to figure it out?
We always coached. I've always had the theory of always coach a team as a group. Okay, I know there's teams out there that that'll set a kid aside and work on certain things, or have them go somewhere else. I don't like that. We're a team first. Team first. You work out as a team. If you want to specialize or individualize, you can do it after practice, before practice, or on your own time. So there's a specific style that we teach, and we tend to change things up every 3 or 4 years to keep everybody in their toes, because they start saying, they're doing this. So it's like, they figure out the counters, and after 3 or 4 years, you kind of change it up a little bit, keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah.
But after we train as a group, and there's a couple advantages to that. So the older kids can work with the younger kids, and they know how to train and teach specific techniques. And then you do individualize as you go on during the season. It's like, all right, listen, you need to work on this. We'll do it after practice or whatever. And body types, anybody can wrestle. And sometimes those kids with the different body types have to figure out what works for them. And that's kind of a process. It's like, all right, you know what? You're not a leg guy. Forget about it. You're going to have to run cradles or something else. So that takes a little bit of time. And the best time for that actually is the off season.
Yeah.
Kids join clubs, go and wrestle. They kind of figure out it's not as off season wrestling is not as tough. It's a lot more fun, more relaxed. You kind of figure out what works for you. But during the season, we work out as a group, train as a group, and that's how we approach it.
Well, let's talk about that too, the off season, because it is totally different. And I've experienced it, but you as a coach, you're even further into it. You had Wadsworth for a while, but now you're New England Gold.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about New England Gold, because you guys are youth, and then you guys transfer into the off-season program. So tell me a little bit about New England Gold Wrestling.
Well, New England Gold, it's open to anybody who wants to come. So I know in our area, a lot of towns don't have youth wrestling, like Bellingham, Medway,
All of the KP
Rentham.
teams.
Yeah, the KP kids come there, our kids. So I don't even know sometimes where the kids are from.
Right.
You know, in youth wrestling, we average about 75 to 100 kids with the different teams. We got an unbelievable staff. I think we just got a fantastic staff of people that come in and help. It's a lot of fun. Parents are great, and we want them to be successful. And we're trying to get more younger wrestlers training in the off season. So we started developing some other programs in the spring, in the fall, and some in the summer, where we get more of the younger kids training in the off season. Because I see it's like, as you know, youth wrestling is unbelievable. It's exploding. You start looking at it and go, jeepers, like where'd this kid come from?
I got all these kindergarten to fourth graders. I'm like, this is crazy. It's one of my biggest groups.
Yeah,
you know, is that.
Same with us.
Yeah.
And the kids want to train. They want to train. I got this one little kid, I call him Killer, you know. He was 5 years old. He started last year. He couldn't do anything. He had a different body type, kind of stout. And kid loved wrestling. Didn't win a match at all last year, right? Now he's in the first grade. He's 6 years old. And he wanted to keep coming to practice. And I let him go to the off-season sessions. There was always somebody there. I was trying to get more youth kids involved in the off-season. So there was always someone there for him to work out with. All of a sudden, he looks like the high school kids.
Yeah.
He's doing everything, you know, and he's winning a lot of matches. He's figuring out what works for himself. And that's the difference with what off-season wrestling would do.
Allows you to experiment and kind of mess around a little bit more. It gives you that opportunity to kind of, like you said, figure out your own body type. And I think the off-season wrestling is so much different than it.
It
you
is.
see leaps
it's a
and
lot
bounds.
of fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like the off-season kind of better. We travel a lot. We go to a bunch of different tournaments. We go up and down the East Coast. And we only take our kids from the club, which I'm really proud of. I know there are clubs out there that recruit out of their club, you know, come wrestle for us. And Johnny Joe, who pays to come to club, doesn't get asked to wrestle on the travel team. You know, we take only our kids. And unless there's an opening and we don't have anybody, I'll, you know, maybe I give you a call. I go, hey, do you have anybody that wants to wrestle? Or Russ Lindsay from the Dungeon, do you have anybody that wants to wrestle? And it's worked out pretty well. And we want our kids to compete. I think competing, I tell kids, wrestling sucks if you don't compete.
Yeah.
Competing's the fun part. And so we like to compete a lot in the off season. But we get kids from all over. Like, and I get attached to a lot of these guys, like the Colace boys from Mansfield. You know, they traveled with us all off season in the last couple of years. We've had a lot of fun. The Cunuffs from King Philip, you know, and other kids too from other areas. It's a lot of fun. You get to know the kids, you get attached to the kids, you want them to succeed. You know, some of our parents will go, what are you teaching those kids all our stuff? Blah, blah, blah. I go, oh, listen, it's just the way wrestling is. It's the way it works out.
Yep.
You know,
they're willing to put in the work, and you're willing to coach them. It's honestly, I think it's a really awesome part of the sport is that a lot of coaches are like that, where you're in my room, you know. What am I going to do, not coach the kid? You know?
Exactly.
And I think it's awesome.
And when we're training together, everybody gets better. I have a lot of respect for Doughboy. You know, that's a hotbed area for wrestling. They got a lot of great programs up there. And but they all train together at the one facility. You know, there's, in our area, you know, there's North, there's us, you know, KP's coming on, Mansfield's coming on, some good but kind of thin. You know, you think about it, really thin.
It's really,
up
the
there,
Hockomock League was huge. And that's pretty much like that. Around that isn't that much in our area.
No, there
isn't.
isn't.
The Hockomock Leagues when I was in high school, Hockomock League was so competitive. Mansfield was very good. You guys and us. Canton even had a few really good wrestlers in it as well.
Yeah.
But it's really been the Hockomock League in the South has been doing really well and competing and working together.
Right. But in Doughboy, in that area, they have 25 teams like us up there. But they all train together at the same facility. They have great travel teams. And I give them a lot of credit because they're all making each other better. They're competing against each other, but they're making each other better overall. And people don't understand that. And I'm kind of proud of our guys too, because like when we wrestle Merrimack Valley teams, we usually beat them.
Yeah.
And those guys are training up at Doughboy. You know, we've had a lot of success against St. John's Prep, Chelmsford, and they've beaten us too. But we're competing with them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's because of the train. But when we wrestle them as a club in the off season, it's like it's tough to compete against them. We have some good kids, but overall it's just tough to compete with them. They draw a lot of talent, more kids from the area. They got great programs up there.
And you know, it's funny. You talked about the youth wrestlers. There's that K-4 group, and one of the things I actually did want to bring up with you was we just went to a tournament that you hosted. Was the Great Wolf Lodge tournament there? That was an awesome idea. It was an awesome tournament to have the kids be able to have that much fun. You know, wrestling is such a hard sport, and it's so hard to find things that
it's not a user-friendly sport.
It's really not, and it's something that I have such a hard time talking to parents about it. Where, you know, the first time parent comes to you and they say, "What's this sport going to be like?" And I'm like, "Nothing like you've ever experienced." Like
that's a good way to put it.
You know, it's. I had a parent, they came up to me and they said, "This is the most personal sport I've ever seen." It's personal because that's my son on the mat by himself, wrestling what is probably the person sitting next to me's son on the mat or daughter, you know, and you're sitting there and you're watching this and it's like, it's so personal. It's so personal. It's not his team.
Could be aware of the moms.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is a lot of times that happens, but the Great Wolf Lodge tournament was awesome. I mean, it was a fun tournament. You saw the kids came in, they had their water park badge on, you know, and they're coming in, they're running around. It was a great tournament to be at.
I wish more teams would partake in that, and you know how I feel about that. It's like, you know, we started doing that kind of an event 4 years ago. I ran it out of the club. And there's a need for that because it's not a user-friendly sport. You know, kids wrestling for the first time, it'd be great if they wrestle someone else for the first time. It doesn't matter who wins. You know, the best match is the match that goes the distance. And the kids don't know who won.
Yeah.
They come off the mat, they feel good. You know, instead of going out to a traditional wrestling tournament, you got a kid that just started wrestling 3 weeks ago, and he's wrestling, some kid's been wrestling for a couple of years. It's just a slaughterhouse. You know, and I had like this one kid, Gavin. Love this kid. He's like 4 years old. I didn't know he was 4. So he wrestled up to the Great Wolf Lodge. The kid had a blast. So like his first match ever, he goes out there, he gets tossed to his back. He didn't know how to get off his back and stuff. I talked to him after the match. I go, "No, you got to work on getting off your back." And so the next 2 matches he did. He didn't get pinned. He fought hard. He didn't want to wrestle his 3rd match because he was like, didn't like losing.
Yeah.
But just, you know, I go, "Gavin, I go, listen, if you can't wrestle this next match, you don't get a medal." He goes like this. So giving every kid a medal is kind of cool too. So he goes out there and wrestles. He does the awards presentation. I give him the medal. And I had a bunch of moms and parents email me and say, "Oh, we had such a great time. My kid went to bed with his medal." You know? So it makes me feel really good that we can provide these kind of opportunities. And the thing is, you want to make it family fun oriented for the kids because wrestling's just tough to get started in. And I was really glad I went up there.
One of the things you talked about was when you were younger, you saw your state champion and you saw his dad and you said, "Wow, that's an awesome moment." But you've had kids wrestle as well. So what's that like watching your kids wrestle?
I'll tell you, it always brings a tear to my eyes sometimes because, you know, when I tried to get I had 4 boys.
Yeah.
2 of them wrestled, the other 2 didn't. Well, the other 2, my 2 youngest boys, they wrestled a little bit, but kind of wanted no part of it.
Yeah.
which is fine. And I tried to tell them, I don't care if you ever win a match. I just want you to be on the team, learn how to be part of a team, how to be involved with all your teammates and stuff like that, and the value of working together to achieve something. So I tried to get my oldest son, CJ, one year I go, "Hey CJ, why don't you go for wrestling? I'll give you $100 if you go for wrestling, youth wrestling." He's in the 6th grade, right? He goes, "Okay." So I was like, "Oh, psyched." And I had 4 boys at the time. David was, my youngest David was I think 1 or 2. But so he goes out for wrestling. Comes home that night, I go, "Hey, how'd you do? Did you like it?" He goes, "Yeah, it was okay. Can I have my $100? I go, yeah, sure. I gave him a $100 bill, and he goes, I quit. You didn't say I had to. You didn't say I had to stay in the team.
No.
I'm like, oh my God! I go to my wife. I go, Gail. I go, what's wrong? I was a wicked jock. I can't get my guys to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and it just kind of clicked with him. It was. I love telling this story because he was entering his eighth. He was in his 8th grade year. Towards the end of the year, and I'm like, CJ, what are you gonna do next year? You're gonna be a freshman. You know, what are your thoughts? You got any career plans or something you like to do? He goes, and I go, he used to do science experiments up in his room. He was called Bill Nye the Science Guy. And he said, well, I want to be a WWF wrestler. I'm like, I go, those guys are athletes, CJ. They go, they lift, they play football, you know, they wrestle, they have some kind of athletic background. You just can't graduate and go into the WWF. He used to like Hulk Hogan and all those guys and stuff like that, so it's like, whatever. All of a sudden, the light went on. He wanted to go out for youth wrestling in his 8th grade year. So the season started, and about 4 or 5 weeks into the season, he said, Dad, you didn't sign me up for wrestling. I go, I didn't know you wanted to wrestle. Of course I'll sign you up for wrestling.
Yeah.
Signed him up, and I remember going to his first match. We had a quad that day, and actually the youth tournament was at Franklin. He didn't even have wrestling shoes. He had basketball shoes on, right? He goes out there, he wrestles his first match, and he got dumped on his head a couple times, headlocked. And he comes off the mat, he had braces, he's all teary-eyed, and his lips are bleeding. I'm like, oh my God, this kid's never gonna wrestle a day in his life again. All right, CJ, I gotta go, I'll talk to you tonight.
Yeah.
And so I come home that night, and he goes, how'd you do? He goes, I lost my next match, but then I won my last match. I go, oh, that's good, CJ. He goes, you know that first match? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you have practice tomorrow? I go, yeah, I do. He goes, can you show me what that kid did so it doesn't happen again? So I said, oh, he's hooked.
Yeah, that's it. That's the hook, line, and sinker right there.
From there on, and when the boys started getting involved in wrestling, I know I drove my wife crazy. I was all over the country traveling for wrestling. And when the boys started getting involved, it became a family thing. And it was a lot of fun, really a lot of fun. Then when he started wrestling, I think, you know, I'm being honest, and I'm looking at him as an athlete. I go, well, he's not very athletic, wicked determined, but not very athletic. And I told him, I go, maybe he'll be a state place winner by the time he's a senior. So his freshman year, he started for us, he had nobody there. He did okay. His sophomore year, he did okay. But then he started transitioning. You know, I had to figure he's got to catch up. And we're talking about individualizing. He started late, so I figured, all right, he's got to catch up. So we started doing the Crab Ride series, which is a very complicated series, with him, and he was doggone stubborn about it. He kept working it. All of a sudden he starts perfecting it, all right, and he starts winning. So I made a deal with him. I go, if you win in New England, I'll buy you a Hummer. You know, you ain't never going to win in New England, right? So his junior year, his sophomore, he goes from taking 5th in the sectionals. He makes it all the way his junior year to the New England semifinals, loses 6-5, and he ends up taking 5th. And the following year, he just had a story. He was national champ.
Yeah.
You know, he was national champ.
So he took 5th in New England's and then won nationals?
That summer there, after he took 5th at New England's, he went on a tear. He didn't lose a match. He was like 60-something and his whole summer. We flew down to Florida, wrestled down there at the Disney Duels. We went 12-0. Then from Disney, we flew into Virginia Beach to wrestle in the National Open. They don't do the tournament anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, I remember that was just an unbelievable experience. I'm like, I think he's got a chance to place. And he learned a few lessons from the summer before at the same tournament, too. He didn't want to cut weight. I go, CJ, this is a national tournament. You got to cut a little weight. So we're sitting there. He makes weight. He's like 165, wrestling 170. And it's like, all right, no problem. So I'm watching this kid there. I'm staying there for weigh-ins. And kid's running. I'm looking at this kid. Holy cow, he's got some kid from, I don't know where he was from.
Yeah.
Guess who CJ Russell's first round? He was gigantic.
Yeah.
I go, CJ said he was pissed at me. I go, hey, that's why you got to cut a little weight. That kid was here all night trying to make weight.
Yeah.
So the next year, you know, he cut a little weight, and his first match was his toughest match, a kid from New Jersey. And then he wins 5 in a row. Now he's in the semifinals, right? I call my wife up. He's going to be an All-American. I go, you got to get down here. We'll see what happens this next match. right? So he beats a kid from Minnesota like 11-3. He's in the finals. I call her up at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I go, he's wrestling tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He's in the finals. And so she was working at the restaurant at the time, and she was on a plane at 3 o'clock. That was so awesome. And so she drove down there. You're so proud of the kid, you know. Goes out there. Next morning, she flies down. I pick her up at Norfolk International Airport. She had to stay in a room with us because I couldn't get a room. There were 5 wrestlers and Dave Breen and one other parent. We all stayed in a suite, and it stunk like you wouldn't believe. And so we go to the wrestling match, and he's wrestling this kid from Georgia, Forrest Garner. I still remember the name. He was on a full ride to James Madison, one of those schools down there, and he was 224-2 career-wise. 4-time state champ, and he's licking his chops looking at CJ because he wasn't very intimidating, you know. And so, you know, he just kept slapping the crowd right on him. He ends up winning. He's got about 20 seconds left in the match, and he's up by 3 or 4 points. And the kid's trying to turn him. I go, just stall. And the referee's looking at me. I don't care. Just give him the point. Stall.
Yeah.
Right, so he ends up winning. I go, my kid's national champ. I go, we can't believe it, you know. So as proud as I was, and the next year he had a storybook season. You know, he went undefeated and won sectional states, New England.
Yeah, did he even leave the first period that year? I don't even think he left the first period.
He set the state record for most consecutive pins. He had 47 in a row.
It's not bad.
And he didn't get pinned. The first kid not to get pinned by him was in the New England semifinals, where he beat the kid 16-1.
Wow.
So I tell you, I loved having him in practice, just seeing him in the air every day. We shared so many special moments together. At times, I felt like the luckiest dad in the world, you know, because I was his coach and his dad. And just to experience that, it's like, I don't know, I don't think there's anything better out there.
Yeah.
You know, how many dads do you know? It's, oh, my son, I want my son to be a state champ. I didn't want my son to be a state champ.
Yeah.
I just wanted him to participate, you know. And it was incredible. It's hard to describe. I sat there after he won in New England, and I go, my boy's a champ, you know? And it was great. Then my other son, Nicholas, came along. He had athletic ability up to yin-yang. Didn't work as hard as CJ, but he was a Mass All-State champ too. Yeah. And so having a family involved was really special. It just became a lot more fun. My wife understood wrestling a lot better. But, you know, and then, you know, she wanted him to wrestle in college so bad. Like, she was planning these trips. All right, we can go to this tournament, go to that tournament, blah, 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 blah. And CJ didn't want to wrestle in college. Yeah. She goes, well, why don't you want to wrestle in college? I go, Ma, I goes, I don't want to wrestle for anybody else but my father. I don't want to, it's like ESPN, I don't want to cry. Yeah. So I go, leave him alone. He doesn't have to wrestle in college. You know, and you see, that broke my, you know, it was unbelievable. I don't want to wrestle for anybody else. Yeah. And actually, Lonnie Morris at the time, who was coaching at Roger Williams, he offered me an assistant's job. No, I don't want to be an assistant. Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, CJ went to school there for a year, and it finally ended up telling me that he wanted to go to film school, so we ended up sending him to Florida. But that problem, I got to experience that proud moment. I still remember Mr. Gazzoli, he passed away a few years ago, just sitting there like this. That's my boy. So I got to experience that. Yeah. I was going crazy. I wasn't just standing there, and CJ walked off the mat like it was another match. Yeah. But it was incredible. That's awesome.
I remember Nick wrestling. I was a freshman, I believe, when CJ was a senior. And CJ wrestled my brother. And my brother was really proud because I think he lasted like a minute and a half with CJ.
Oh, I didn't realize he wrestled your brother.
Yeah. He wrestled my brother because he was, what, 160? Yeah. So he wrestled my brother, Jeff. But after that, I remember Nick wrestling because we went to Delaware and Nick was wrestling with us. And the one time I remember watching Nick wrestle was he was asleep on the side of the mat. and you're looking at, and you go, guys, Nick is up next. Like, where is he? And we look down, we're like, hey, like, you're going to wrestle. And he's like, all right. So he gets up, he puts on his headgear, and I'm looking at Kyle Cumber, who's sitting next to me. I'm like, dude, like, he just woke up. Like, how's this guy gonna wrestle right now? And also Nick goes out and beats the crap out of some poor kid from Virginia, and puts him in it was a gator roll. I remember he gator rolled the kid, put him on his back, and pinned him. I was like, man, should I be sleeping before my matches too? That was amazing.
He used to do that all the time. Different kids get ready for different, they all prepare.
He was so relaxed, relaxed.
He is very laid back and wicked talented. He was an athlete.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was happy with what he did. His senior year, he hadn't lost a match all year. His senior year, he was already a two-time state champ and an all-state champ, and he got headbutted by Michael Wren and got a concussion.
Yeah.
In the sectional finals. And Michael Wren, he already beat Michael Wren that year a couple of times, and Michael Wren went on to win the New Englands that year. So I couldn't wrestle him the next week at the States. He came up to me, we went to a hospital afterwards and everything else, and he said he's got a mild concussion, blah, blah, blah. All right, no problem. And Nick came up to me and goes, I don't have to wrestle in the state tournament, Dad. He goes, at that time, I think we were in the state finals for the duels. And he goes, I just rather wrestle in the dual meet tournament so the team can win. I go, okay. So I held him out of the state tournament.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning the individuals without him, which was great. And then I still got that picture of him wrestling his last high school match against Natick, and he monkey rolled the kid just like the gator roll, right? We got a great picture of him hitting it. He's on his back, back arched. The kid's flying through the air, and the only thing touching the ground are his heels. Oh, sort of a great picture. Ends up pinning the kid. We beat Natick in the finals. We win. It was just another special moment where, gave him a big hug, and we got a picture of that. And so I'm a really lucky guy. I got into this for what reason, I don't know. They say, how'd you do it? I go, I don't know. One thing I always believed was, if you're going to do something, try to be the best at it, work at it, be a hard worker. And I don't know what happened. All of a sudden we're here, And
now you're sitting across me, right?
Yeah. And it's like, I've had so many great experiences in wrestling, and it's hard to describe. Even through my tough times in my life too, when my wife passed away, she had a long illness, and that was hard. But my best friend and mother of my children, and wrestling got me through all that. I remember going to club when I was at Wadsworth and going to the practice. She never interfered with that. My in-laws had a lot of help with, they were there sitting with her and taking care of her while I was away, and it was like therapy. Going down and seeing the kids, I always get a laugh, come home with a smile. Then, I would take care of it. That year there was brutal. I was trying to develop a business where it fell apart. I was trying to build a sports complex in town, and she was sick. I lost my home because I had to do a short sale on it. It was a beautiful property, 4,500 square foot home. Just because I had involved in the complex, it was that time during nobody was getting financing for everything. I spent thousands of dollars on engineering, and everybody loved the idea. And it was, so I lost her. I lost my family trust. We had a trust. I lost all my shares in that. I lost the business. I didn't know what I was going to do. Ended up leaving the restaurant. I didn't know what I was going to do for money. It was brutal. But wrestling got me through all that.
Wow.
And so I thank wrestling. Wrestling's done a lot of amazing things for me personally. Never looking for anything, but just the way it worked out, And now, but it took me to tell people, well, after going through all that, I kind of figured out what I really want to do after 51 years old. I was 51 years old. And okay, I go, you know what, I don't want to work in the restaurant business anymore. I was always meant to coach and be with kids. I'm going to do that. And you know, I left, closed down Wadsworth because it was just too expensive. I downsized and loved what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I started a little apparel business where I sell shirts and stuff like that, make a little money there, and my boys are still with me. You know, I live in an apartment now. You know, the boys own the house. I got them to buy the house. But I live in a little apartment. I'm happy as a clam. I went from a 4,500 square foot home on top of a hill, front porch, back porch. I even had the pavilion outside. I don't know if you've ever been up to the house.
I haven't.
The wrestling pavilion outside. Kids used to come up and wrestle up there, and now I got like an 800 square foot apartment. And but I'm doing what I like to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the New England Gold place again. You know, for your off-season tournament, for your youth wrestling, youth wrestling. For your off-season program, it's New England Gold's one of the best. It's absolutely one of the best in New England. It's definitely one of the premier programs. You know, even my parents, they ask me where they want to go, and I always tell them in the off-season we don't offer something. We usually go to Blackstone or New England Gold, who's our direct competitor. But that's out of respect. I mean, it's the fact that we trust that if our kids go to New England Gold, they're going to come back, with high quality wrestling, and we know that they're also going to get coached in a way that we want them to be coached. You know, it's you guys have an awesome program. It's a
Thanks,
fantastic
I appreciate
program.
that, and you guys do too. You know, I know Blackstone Valley's next to us and stuff, but that's where you guys go, and that's okay. That's good. You know, and you guys do a fantastic job too. And with kids are kids.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where they're from. You know, it's not like the other sports where you don't see football coaches working together to make each other better, do you?
Right.
But wrestling, that's the way it is.
Coach, I want to thank you. We sat down for over an hour now.
Yeah, it was fun.
But this was awesome. I want to say thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. That was a discussion with the Franklin High School wrestling coach, Carmine Colace. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks.